Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're decoding a massive geopolitical and economic story, and strangely enough, it's hidden entirely inside a routine airline schedule change. We're going to look at the invisible threads that keep entire regional economies afloat and what actually happens when those threads are suddenly cut. This isn't just about an airplane changing its destination. It's a really profound look into the fragility of tourism, economic reliance, and structural power in the modern world. Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine a major, absolutely vital connection between two parts of the world. Now imagine it just vanishes. Poof. On October 31st, Jetblue ends its non-stop service between New York's JFK Airport and Antigua's V.C. Byrd International Airport. The airline is just withdrawing from the destination completely. But what happens when a flight like this quietly disappears? How does an entire country react when a major artery of its economy is just severed without any warning?
You know, what makes this event so shocking isn't a political crisis. There was no natural disaster. There wasn't even a dramatic press conference. The flight was simply a line item disappearing from a reservation system. In fact, according to reports from Antigua's government, this crucial route was pulled from JetBlue's own system before the government even received formal word of the decision. I mean, think about that for a second. It tells you almost everything you need to know about the massive power imbalance between a single small island destination and a giant corporate carrier headquartered 1,000 miles away. To really understand the stakes here, we need to completely redefine what a flight actually is. Air connectivity isn't just transportation, it's essential economic infrastructure. But unlike a highway, a bridge, or a seaport, the local government doesn't own it. Foreign airlines do. Sure, every direct flight carries tourists to fill hotel rooms, but it also carries investment capital, returning diaspora families, and overall economic confidence. The critical vulnerability here is that the airlines controlling this infrastructure answer to their shareholders, not to the countries whose economies desperately depend on them. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer weight of that vulnerability. Just look at Antigua and Barbuda. Tourism accounts for a massive 35% of their total gross domestic product. That is one of the highest tourism dependency ratios in the entire Caribbean. So when an airline unilaterally decides to pull a major flight, they aren't just inconveniencing a few travelers. They're delivering a devastating structural shock straight to the core engine of an island's economy. And the stakes for Antigua right now? Well, they could not be higher. 2024 was a banner year. They saw a record 1.2 million total visitor arrivals, which was up 17% year over year. A huge part of that growth was driven by the U.S. market. That included over 330,000 stayover visitors, the ones actually booking hotel rooms and spending heavily on the island, plus over 800,000 cruise passengers. A direct link to New York, which is one of the biggest visitor and diaspora hubs in the world, is absolutely vital to maintaining these numbers. But here is the silent alarm bell. 9.7%. Before JetBlue even announced they were leaving, stayover arrivals had actually begun to soften. Monthly figures for late 2025 showed that stopover arrivals had dropped, down 6.9% in November and down 9.7% in December compared to the exact same months in the previous year. Losing a major nonstop link is always tough, but losing it right in the middle of an already cooling trend, that is incredibly dangerous for an economy so heavily reliant on visitor numbers. Now, what's truly jarring here is the stark contrast in perspectives. For Antigua, this cancellation is an emotional and economic devastation. But for the airline, it's just math. As our source material puts it, this is not an emotional call by the airline, it's capital allocation, made in a boardroom with a spreadsheet. Antigua's Minister of Tourism diplomatically noted that this is just how airlines optimize their aircraft deployment. The carrier is asking a cold, hard question. Where does this physical airplane make us the absolute most money?
So where did that airplane actually go? Well, JetBlue has been under some financial pressure and is executing a major restructuring plan called Jet Forward. They're pivoting hard toward Fort Lauderdale, planning to build a 150 daily departure hub, basically racing to scoop up gates and market share left behind by Spirit Airlines. To fund this massive expansion, they literally need physical aircraft. Antigua just lost that internal corporate competition. Think about the irony here. A massive driver of an entire Caribbean nation's economy was cut simply to free up a plane to fly out of Daytona Beach or marginal domestic routes.
So the crucial point is what we can call the uncomfortable arithmetic of modern aviation. You might be sitting there thinking, well, if the flights to Antigua were full, why on earth cancel them? Because a route can be completely full of paying passengers and still lose out to a different route that yields more revenue per seat. Airlines are ruthless in their daily and quarterly calculations. Every single destination in the Caribbean is now competing against every other route in a carrier's global network for the exact same planes. And this brings us to a much deeper macro-level problem facing the entire region. Between 2010 and 2024, a massive shift occurred. Flights connecting the Caribbean to North America and Europe, which we call extra-Caribbean capacity, nearly doubled. But flights connecting the islands to each other, intra-Caribbean capacity, fell by almost half. This means the region has become hyper-connected to the north, but deeply strategically disconnected from itself. Airports aren't being built to trade with neighbors anymore. They're built to fight each other over the exact same New York and Miami passengers. 30%. That is the exact drop in the region's overall intra-regional connectivity index, according to a massive 2026 study by the Dutch aviation consultancy NACO. To put that into perspective, while regions like Asia-Pacific and the Middle East more than doubled their internal connectivity during the same period, the Caribbean is one of the only regions on Earth to have actively lost ground. They are structurally isolated from their very own neighbors. This extreme dependence on foreign airlines isn't just an economic issue, though. It is a massive public safety vulnerability. We saw this firsthand during the 2025 hurricane season with Hurricane Melissa. Large-scale evacuations across Jamaica, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic were severely disrupted because the region relies on foreign carriers that, well, simply reset their schedules and leave when disaster strikes. Add to that the ongoing regional chaos from the collapse of the local airline Liat, and it becomes crystal clear. You absolutely cannot rely entirely on foreign companies to keep your people safe and connected during a crisis. So, when a flight like Jetblue's JFK Antigua route vanishes, the damage rolls out in phases. It's like a ripple effect. You have the immediate hits, the empty hotel rooms, and the sudden drop in arrival stats. But the long-term economic erosion, that's far worse. Direct flights strengthen diaspora ties, they support medical travel, and they simplify logistics for trade. When that connection goes away, investors notice first because their logistics just got a whole lot harder. Families notice next when they literally can't afford to fly home. Businesses notice after that. And the governments, unfortunately, they usually notice last. All right, so how do we fix this? Let's look at the CARICOM solution, reclaiming regional connectivity. Because responding to these route cancellations island by island with localized subsidies, it simply doesn't work against multi-billion-dollar airlines. CARICOM, the Caribbean community, must treat air connectivity as foundational infrastructure. So here are the collective steps they really need to take. 1. Negotiate with airlines as a unified bloc. Stop fighting each other for the same scraps of capacity and start bargaining with actual structural power. 2. Build real incentives for year-round service, not just seasonal flights that leave islands exposed half the year. 3. Expand those inter-island travel networks so the Caribbean becomes a functioning network, not just a set of spokes attached to Miami. And 4. Diversify partnerships. Never, ever let one foreign carrier's balance sheet become a single point of failure for your entire economy. October 31st is the day the JFK to Antigua flight disappears from the board. But as the source text powerfully suggests, history may remember October 31st as the moment the conversation finally started. This single, quiet cancellation serves as a vital wake-up call for the entire region. It's definitive proof that a strategy based purely on hoping foreign airlines maintain their routes out of goodwill isn't a strategy at all. Which leaves us with this final critical question to ponder. Will the Caribbean leverage this moment to finally build its own strategic infrastructure, negotiate as a unified bloc, and truly connect its islands? Or will it remain permanently dependent on the unpredictable goodwill and quarterly profit margins of foreign airlines? The economic independence of the entire region might just depend on that answer. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep questioning what's going on behind the scenes of the systems we all just take for granted. Catch you next time.